Alright, welcome everybody back to ISLA NAPALI. Welcome to the 5th episode of Season 2 of ISLA NAPALI. And in today's episode, I am going to spoil you here. We are still working on a station, so for those of you who do want to see progress, you might want to skip this one and tune in for tomorrow's episode. For those of you who want to know more about the build in general, stick with me. That'll be the topic of today's episode. So now, enjoy! Boom! And I just noticed that I forgot in the intro screen, which is swiping up the blue one, I forgot to change the numbers, so I basically have to change it to 5 for this episode. So you might want to see if I did this in the editing. But for now, I'm just going to stick with what I just said a few seconds ago. In this episode, I am going to talk, at least a try, solely about the station itself and the building itself. Reason for this is, and I keep it short, you guys gave me a lot of feedback, which is awesome, and I think I will try to vary the episodes quite a bit. So today's episode is a bit of the slower progress again, and slower time-lapse, so that I do have time to actually talk about what you see. But I do also want to bring in some episodes that are having a lot more progress, with also some real-time parts showing you a little bit in detail, and I guess if I'm not completely wrong, these can be in the end of one area. So I think for the next bit of this station building, we are already in like the 4th episode only building the station. So I think for the first people it gets to be a bit more boring, and there's a good reason for having more progress in one video then, because then people want to go into the next area, and to be completely honest, I want to do this as well. So yeah, reason being that I explained why that happened and why I think a good variety will be that is going to be the best for everyone. So yeah, that's quite what I want. And I hope that you guys keep on being active in the comments. Last episodes have been a bit on the slower part, but honestly I also don't really know what you would like to comment, because it's all over the same. So maybe in today's episode you can comment a lot about your struggle of building custom roofs in Planet Coaster, because this episode will be a lot about this custom roof of this building. So let me just go back to 2 episodes ago when we built the big roof, the roundish roof, which is now the centerpiece of the main station of this roller coaster, which has been in the past, as we talked about in the last episode, a visitor center, which was mainly for a botanical garden. But hey, I think it's fair to say that this is still something to consider and could be turned into a coaster station. However, it's been a while that I really have built a custom roof before 2 episodes ago, and I kind of felt it's time again to do so, and I wanted to bring in a custom roof for this little area here as well, because I feel like this is like where we have the toilet in, there's also a medical center, and it's like really a facility building. And I'm thinking that this building has been already one of these kind of buildings in the past. So this is not, repurposed in the time when the park has been turned into a theme park. I think this is more or less like something that has been there already from the get-go. So if you imagine there is a visitor center and you don't have room for like kind of facilities within the big center, you want to put them right next to it. And imagining this has been a botanical garden, there could have been easily this little building in the middle. And I'm constructing a roof with the idea in mind that this building has been a full building beforehand. So at the end of this build, you will see that this is kind of half-ish, because behind this building there is the coaster going into the brake run. So you can already tell that from the actual footage you're looking at. There's the brake run going on, and just imagine that before the coaster has been built, the back side of the building has basically been exactly a copy of the front side, so that you do have the same facilities, just in a mirrored way on the back side of this building, which is something you do see quite often in these kind of facilities in parks or in botanical gardens or whatnot. They kind of try to maximize the space. And so, for example, talking about toilets, you would have like the male toilet on the one hand for men, and the one for woman, the female one on the other side, and then just like mirrored. Because if you do it mirrored on this kind of squarey footprint, you kind of manage to have both exactly built the same way, but then just mirror the whole layout so that they can go in from both sides. So I hope you can follow me on this one. So yeah, this is why I thought, okay, let's build it this way. And then, in the course of changing the park into a theme park and then building the coaster, they just scrapped away one of the 2 toilets and made the one kind of transgender, like, if that makes any sense. But you know, they just used the smaller footprint and made 2 of it, if you want. But yeah, moving on to the next part, which was a bit more tricky, to be honest. Because I wanted to incorporate the coaster as good as possible, and yet make it look nice. So I wanted to fill in these gaps here, and also made sure that, you know, that the coaster itself is not, I don't know, is not going into the roof, because you know, being realistic means that this is somewhat fitting, and people wouldn't hurt their hands by holding them out of the coaster. So I needed to make sure that there is enough of a gap in all these areas. So yeah, I was actually trying to figure out how this works quite a few times. So as you can see, I'm moving the pieces that way so that it does work. It's really tight on there, but it still does work. So I thought, okay, they could even have been connecting this to make sure that the coaster has a bit more of stability of the building. However, I'm not quite sure if it would make sense to connect it to the building, because then the building would be shaky the whole time. I don't know. So might want to change this in the next couple of episodes, but maybe not as a major part. Maybe I'm just doing this off screen or not, so that nobody noticed. I mean, I changed so many things over the course of this series without being noticed, that I'm just quite happy that I can do it all of a sudden, and then, you know, it's fine, it's done, because some of the things just don't need to be on screen. It's just too boring to have it on screen, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much as it is. But yeah, as you can see, we're going on to deal a little bit with yeah, let's call them detail elements. And yes, I know I was just going around a little bit here and there because I wanted to fix some of the issues. Maybe let me just talk about, because many people asked this in the past. It kind of got a little bit more quiet around that corner of questions, but many people asked how I approach buildings and how I approach being creative in the game. And I quite often already told you that there is no such a thing like a blueprint how I do build. For me, it's always like I have a certain vision in mind, which is not a finished building. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of it's somewhat a combination of things I've already seen in real life, of a kind of architectural style, I don't know. And then there is a specific layout in my mind. I really quite often think in layouts. I don't know why, but it kind of makes more sense to me that I have a certain path that I can walk, and then I do know where stuff is and why it belongs there. And the third thing is pure inspiration. Like, I don't know, it can be anything. It can be a color, it can be music, it can be a movie. I don't know, it's like something that gets the twist in it. And it's not like that I go in the game and I know where everything belongs exactly. It's more that I kind of try to block things off first, so that I do have a general idea about the layout to get the first thing out of my mind. As soon as this is done, I am trying myself around a little bit with the architectural style. So I'm testing things, like basically building some walls, putting some pillars around, changing a few bits and pieces, changing color and stuff. And as soon as I'm quite happy with it, I'm starting to fill in some of the areas with this architectural style. But that doesn't mean that this is the final style. At some point, I might just go back and change a few things. And then the last bit comes in as soon as the whole thing starts to really shape up. The little twist in my head comes in, whether it's be a color again, as I said, or music or whatnot. It's just about atmosphere. And it's a perfect example to talk about this right now, because you can see I used a little bit of a different color, wooden color, to make these roofs different, or slightly differently styled from the lower part of it, which you can't really see from our gaming view, so to say. But if people are walking through the park and they're looking upwards, they barely see the top part of roofs. They do see what's below. They do see the pillars. They do see the elements. They do see like the ceiling and stuff, but they don't see like the top of it. The perspective is changing when you're playing the game or when you're experiencing the park. And I think this is what, for example, Bro Coaster always did perfectly. They barely ever watched at the park from above. They basically always used Tagit Cam, or at least they were on eye level to walk through the park, because this is how guests do perceive a park. That's how they experience it, and you have to think about these things, and I always try to keep that in mind. And this is how I approach things. I want to go in with these little details then to make it's a different. So if you think about my Camel Kingdom, for example, I went completely crazy, and from the progress, what I just explained to you, the process, it's basically the same, but I wasn't paying attention too much to realism. I was more paying attention to this really inspirational thing in my mind, and it is kind of, it's I think you can say the idea about the layout in my mind is what changed the most. This layout now is always in combination with the let's call it my own demand to myself. Like, I am expecting from myself, the expectation is to make it realistic, whether it has not always been the expectation to myself that I need to be realistic in my builds in the older stuff. So I think it goes hand in hand with the idea about the layout, to be completely honest. I think that's what changed, but the inspiration didn't really change. And I think it's, on the one hand side, this is really a curse of my life, but on the other hand side, it's one of the most beautiful things I can ever experience. I don't really I never talked about that in detail, I guess, but I really have the issue, which is not really an issue, it's actually a gift, at least in my mind, but I get inspiration out of everything. There's not a single day in my life where I don't have anything that does inspire me, which is really truly a gift. Like, I can go outside and I see a tree, moving in the wind, and like, let's say 354 days of the year. It doesn't really do anything with me, but this one day, actually it's 64, I should say, that makes more sense, but the 365th day of the year, it kind of inspires me. And this is with everything. Some days I'm just driving around in my car, and then it might sound weird now, but the way I take the turn, or I take some of the roads, and I don't know, the feeling of the car gives me inspiration of building a coaster. Does it sound weird to you? It does sound weird in my ears at the moment, but anyways, this is how my brain works, and this is why I need this game to leave that all in here, to make sure that my brain doesn't get fucked by all the inspiration I have, because at some point you really need to let that out. Because when I was away for like a month lately, my brain kind of started to burn out in a way that I couldn't leave that shit out. Like, I couldn't let it out, I couldn't let it flow, and that really gives me a struggle. But anyways, sorry, I just drifted into something else, but we just finished the roof, so that's about this. I said it's just about the roof. Anyways, I'll put some screenshots in now, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of being a bit more slower and talking about what I do here, talking about the roof and talking about my inspiration, how this actually works and how I approach it. And I hope this is interesting for you. Maybe you want to talk about how you approach things in Planet Coaster in general. Do you also have that kind of inspiration going on? And maybe it doesn't have to be about building stuff. For me, for example, I'm always super jealous to people that are pretty freaking awesome in doing music stuff. I'm like really super bad in music, and I love listening to music, and I hope at least that I have a somewhat decent taste of music, but that's it. And I'm super jealous of people that get inspiration out of everything and they do just a freaking awesome song or whatever. I just can't do that. So maybe you have a talent that you want to share with me, so let me know in the comments down below. And for now, that's been it, and I see you tomorrow in the next episode of ISLA NAPALI. Have a good day, guys, and make also sure to check out the other videos being released yesterday and today. So yeah, have a good day, see you next time, and bye bye.